Woman is facing charges accused of trying to poison a man with antifreeze.
The 34-year-old victim telling police he drank a small amount of red wine back in August, went to bed, and woke up feeling sick. According to court documents, he then called his mother. And when she got to the home, he was slurring his words, staggering, and vomiting. Once at the hospital, doctors initially thought he was having a stroke, but realized he was showing signs of ethylene glycol poisoning, which is the ingredient in liquids such as antifreeze. He was admitted to the ICU and put on dialysis. Police confirming the wine tested positive for the substance.
ABC's Morgan Norwood. Hurricane Priscilla has weakened in the Pacific as it moves along the west coast of Mexico. 7 men were arrested earlier this year for robbing the homes of famous athletes. Now a new target.
Security footage has led to the arrest of 2 men accused of burglarizing Cam Jordan's home in Jefferson Parish. Now police investigating about a dozen similar break-ins on pro athletes want to know
whether it's loosely connected or directly connected.
Sheriff Joe Lapinto says
sometimes you have copycats.
He notes that the men accused of breaking into Cam Jordan's home are from Georgia.
I'm sure he'll get his revenge on the playing field when we go back and play Atlanta.
Warrants have been issued for 2 other suspects. Jim Ryan, ABC News.
Joan Kennedy, the former wife of Senator Edward Kennedy, has died. She was 89. Kennedy was a mother, a musician, and she became one of the first women to publicly acknowledge her struggles with alcoholism and depression. She's survived by 2 sons and 9 grandchildren. Dave Packer, ABC News.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. Ever wonder why Big Wireless wants you on an unlimited plan? They probably want you to cover the cost of those 20-somethings using all that data every month. But most people 50 and up like me only use 12 gigs or less. Don't get bamboozled by Big Wireless. Switch to Consumer Cellular. Our plans start at just $20, and we use the same towers as the big guys. Join the millions who choose something better, because if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
News Talk 610 AM and 102.1 FM. KBNU.
It's now 5:05 on this Wednesday afternoon, and I'm Will Feelwright with a quick look at some of our top stories. Well, a 16-year-old was shot and killed near Ben Lomond High School yesterday afternoon, collapsing on campus while seeking help, according to police. Now, authorities have not yet located the suspect and are seeking the public for information. Now, the shooting happened right around 2:50, just as school was being released for the day. Now, Ben Lomond High School principal Veldon Wardle confirmed the student's death, adding that a school safety officer and its staff had also attempted life-saving measures. Now, as a precaution yesterday, Ben Lomond High, Highland Junior High, and East Ridge Elementary were all briefly placed on secure protocol, while all extracurricular activities at the high school were canceled for the day. Ogden Police Captain Tim Scott said the incident is not connected to a hoax bomb threat that forced the evacuation of the high school last week, while the homicide is now being investigated by a special investigation team. And with President Russell M. Nelson's funeral concluding yesterday, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints say they anticipate the leadership of expected incoming President Dallin H. Oaks. Now, Oaks, who's the senior-most member of the church's Quorum of the 12 Apostles, is next in line by tradition. Now, many who attended Nelson's funeral yesterday expect that Oaks' presidency will be a smooth continuation of the church's current direction. Now, the 93-year-old Oaks is a former Utah Supreme Court justice and former president of Brigham Young University. Members have described him as methodical and forthcoming. His formal ascension to the presidency is expected to be announced in the coming days. And a small airplane had to make an emergency landing along Interstate 84 in Morgan County yesterday afternoon, which briefly blocked traffic. Utah Highway Patrol Sergeant Mike Alexander said the aircraft landed safely near Mountain Green at around 3:20. Now, troopers and fire crews quickly responded to ensure the area was safe, interrupting traffic along one lane of the interstate. Now, Morgan County Fire and EMS praised the pilot for the successful landing. The agency noted that they were happy to report that both the pilot and the plane made it home safely. Now, no injuries were reported to anyone on the ground or in the aircraft. And Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall has declared a state of emergency after historic weekend flooding had affected dozens of homes. Now, more than 2.5 inches of rain fell in just 14 hours between Friday and Saturday, and that was the most recorded in a single day in over 124 years. Now, city officials said that the drainage systems in some neighborhoods were overwhelmed, which damaged more than 24 homes. Now, the 30-day emergency order provides the city with greater flexibility to access resources and quickly apply for state and federal recovery funds for impacted residents. Mendenhall said that the city can also access additional resources and move faster to support families who've been affected. Now, residents, meanwhile, are seeking answers on why the city's systems failed to prevent the rare level of flooding. Well, it's been a gorgeous afternoon, and we're going to continue to enjoy clear skies as we head through the rest of the afternoon and overnight tonight, as temperatures have been in the low 70s today. Tomorrow we'll see high 70s, with overnight temperatures tonight dropping into the high 30s. Now, chance of some showers, though, beginning Thursday night, and that's going to continue on and off through Friday, Saturday, and then tapering off by Sunday. Looks like some cooler weather also coming for the weekend, too, as we'll see daytime temperatures only around the low 60s to high 50s and overnight temperatures into the low 30s. And weather this hour is brought to you by Quality First Insurance. If you're a renter looking for peace of mind and affordable insurance coverage, call Matt Robbins with Quality First Insurance. They offer renters insurance policies that can be tailored to fit your needs. It's Quality First Insurance at 752-0101. And that's a quick check of your headlines here at 5:09, and KVNU's For the People Show with Jason Williams is coming up next.
Today's hearing aid technology can improve not only your life, but the lives of the people who care about you. Once again, you'll be able to hear the reason for their laughter and understand conversations. Dr. Paul Daines at Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology will customize a hearing improvement program to meet your unique requirements, whatever they are. Call Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology for an appointment and let them show you how.
Bring back what you've been missing. Bring back Cache Valley Hearing and Audiology.
It all happens here. News Talk, KVNU, 610 AM and 102.1 FM.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Jessup Insurance has a local office with professionals that understand all the Medicare plans available to Utah and Idaho citizens. They simply make Medicare understandable at no additional cost. Call Jessup Insurance 435-213-3200 or Google Jessup Insurance.
Jessup Insurance and Retirement Services. Let us guide you.
Give your family everything. Give them your time. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Welcome back to KVNU's For the People. Hour 2 of today's show. I'm very excited about this because it is, as a political junkie, of course, right up my alley. But it's also been a topic of legislative policy debates. It is an ongoing debate around, various headlines, political or otherwise, that might pop up. And recently it was something the legislature decided to throw a little more money and focus at. And in general, it's known as civic education. It is taught from the grade school to the university level in various forms here in Utah. And it's something that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, depending on how and in what context you're talking about civic education. So an opportunity here as part of our monthly spotlight on Logan schools to talk about exactly that. What is civic education? How is it taught? And how students respond to it. Here in the studio with us, we have 3 educators at various levels of the Logan School District, from grade school to middle school to high school. And, of course, to kick things off here, the person who makes this happen each month, he does all the work. I just sit here and wait for him to show up. In the studio with us as well, Superintendent of Logan Schools, Frank Schofield. And Frank, can you tell everyone, was there a reason that you wanted to focus on this as this month's spotlight?
Yeah. First of all, I need to clarify, the work I put into this is sending an email. I want to make it sound like this is too big a piece of my schedule. Yeah,
Hey,
we
guess what
think
you're
about
doing
it,
on
but
Wednesday?
we send out some invitations, and I'm extremely fortunate to have a lot of very willing participants who jump on board. But the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic this month is, we've recently, over the last month, had some moments of significant turmoil and social stress, both in our community, in the state, and across the country. And, of course, the tragic killing of Charlie Kirk is one of those that would hit pretty close to home for a lot of people. And over the last several years, we've seen a pattern that when we have events like this, there's often a concern that pops up either locally or even nationally that one of the causes of these events is a lack of students' or youth's understanding of civics, principles of U.S. history, principles of government, or an understanding of civics and a lack of civics education. That's one of the things that has motivated the Utah legislature to bring more focus to that. But it's something that I see happens regularly whenever we have situations like this. So I wanted to bring in some of our outstanding educators who specifically work in this area, history and civics, and have them share a little bit about what they do in their classes, how they help students learn these skills, how they develop the knowledge base that helps them be better citizens, be more civically engaged, and in ways that actually contribute to a healthy community and a healthy society. So I felt it was germane to kind of the time that we're in right now, and since we have some really outstanding social studies teachers in our district, I figured it'd be a great opportunity to hear from them.
I'm excited about it because from the most basic level of understanding, which is all I have of what civics class at the grade school or middle school or high school level would be all about. I know, from personal experience from talking to others that at very least this will often spur someone to get more engaged in the process, to at least cast a ballot, to at least maybe pay attention to or have a deeper understanding, I guess, when paying attention to the news of how certain things are working. And I set it up this way in the first hour. I said, look, we're not talking about everyone being an expert on when the filibuster rules apply and don't apply at the United States Senate level. Nerds like me know that, but the average person has no reason to know that. I understand that. But we are talking about understanding the basics of how government functions, different branches and their responsibilities, where the Constitution lays out and delegates certain powers. But is it fair to say broadly we're also, like almost any area of education, we're also, or you're also, as educators, hoping to spark some curiosity and interest? That has to be a goal of this, right?
Yes.
I should introduce you to our listeners. Here in the studio, this happens often when I'm excited about a topic. I forget we're on air. Here in the studio with us, in addition to Superintendent Frank Schofield, who you heard from there, we have Ryan Meuller, U.S. history teacher at Mount Logan Middle School, Jason Soffe, who's joined us before on a different topic, teaches U.S. history and U.S. government at Logan High School, and Amy Cox, fifth grade level teacher at Wilson Elementary, teaching civics education to fifth graders. And thanks to you all for being here, and again to Frank for bringing you in. And Amy, if you don't mind, maybe we can start with you, because I'm fascinated by this idea of teaching fifth graders to care about this stuff, which has to be similar to teaching them to care about math or some of these topics that are often a challenge for that age, where you're half trying to convince them they need to know it in the first place.
Yeah.
But you said before we started here today that there's genuine curiosity from the students at that age level.
Yeah, believe it or not, they really enjoy learning about this topic. It piques their interest, and it's things that they've heard about from the time they were kindergarten on up, about George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, but it grows into their government. And we get to teach the ideal government, not maybe what's happening, the goods and the bads of what's out there currently, but the ideal government, and they feel a part of that. They see their role in being a part of their government on, and surprisingly, they know a lot about the President of the United States or, the Vice President of the United States, but we take it down to you have a governor, you have a mayor, you have and connect it to their community, and they absolutely love it.
That is interesting. And that, wouldn't have been my assumption at that age, that they would have an interest, but it's encouraging to hear that. It's also, I think, for most listeners out there, something that, and we can get into this more later on, the specifics of what you teach at that level. We discussed this already, but each age level, you approach this in a different way, right? Amy, you said at the 5th grade level, you're presenting this in a very introductory way. They've learned about community, and they've learned about what it means to be a citizen, maybe of a country, maybe some international history that they've been exposed to at this point as well, world history, Utah history, things like that. And then you come in at the 5th grade level and say, okay, here's technically how all of this applies.
Correct, yeah. We focus a lot on the 3 branches of government, how they work together. And at our school, we actually have an experience where they get to elect officials to be parts of the 3 branches of government.
Oh, really?
So we have a class president, we have senators, we have
judicial. I would have been a tyrannical 5th grade president.
It's pretty fun. Yep, they get to make some laws for a couple of weeks and see how the whole process works out. But, like I said, we focus on the 3 branches of government, and they really get into that, how our government was formed based on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and different things like that. And then, with so much of our literature and the different programs that we study, there are so many current events that tie into that literature that you'd be surprised that we're able to touch on through social studies throughout the year.
Do you have, at that age level, do you have students who come to class and do want to talk about an immediate news story, something that's in the news that day or that week?
Absolutely. And what I see from 5th graders is emotion. So let's just say with the Charlie Kirk instance, things had happened at home. They'd heard things or seen things on the news, and they come to school with big emotions about it. And so we have something called a morning meeting. And in that meeting, we're able to discuss some of those emotions, some of those points of view. We look at both sides of everything in 5th grade, of course, but we're able to talk through because they're very empathetic kids and they want to understand, why would something like this happen, or where did the viewpoints come from that caused it?
That is both fascinating and heartbreaking as well, and a good reminder, I think, for all of us adults that children do pick up on this.
Mm-hmm.
They do hear what we say and what our elected officials say on it's a funny clip on CNN to a lot of adults. It can impact a child very differently. Here in the studio again with us for listeners, we have Superintendent of Logan Schools, Frank Schofield, and teachers of history, civic education, social studies in general. We have Amy Cox. You just heard from Amy teaching civics education at the 5th grade level. At the middle school level, we have Ryan Meuller here in the studio. On the high school level, U.S. history and U.S. government teacher Jason Soffe. And I hope you'll stick with us. More of KVNU's For the People Spotlight on Logan Schools right after this.
Whoever you are, young or a little gray, hop on Connect Transit. We're on our way. Wherever you're headed, work, school, or play, we'll get you there the easy way. No parking, no traffic, no worries, no fuss. Just sit back, relax, and ride with us. Skip the hassle, skip the drive. With Connect Transit, you'll arrive. Connect Transit. We're going your way. Visit rideconnectutah.gov to find your ride today.
For 100 years, the Murdoch Auto Team has served the people of Utah. It's a legacy we're honored to carry forward.
During the anniversary sales event, receive 0% for 5 years on the Tucson or 1.99% for 5 years on the Santa Fe.
And every new Hyundai comes with America's best warranty, a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty, and owner's assurance.
When you walk through our doors, you feel like family.
At Murdoch Hyundai in Logan, Linden, and Murray, or online at murdochhyundai.com.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 11/3/25.
KVNU's For the People. This hour, a spotlight on Logan Schools, monthly segment here on the show. Superintendent Frank Schofield here in the studio, and teachers from grade school to middle school to high school who specialize in social studies, U.S. and government history, civics education in general. The Utah legislature recently expanded the focus on civics education in Utah schools, or at least allowed for the option for it in districts around the state. And this is something that many schools had already in many ways taken and run with. And we're getting a chance to actually talk about it today. As Frank said at the start of the hour, this is kind of a political football at times. I swear, every time a Utah lawmaker goes home and talks to their 14-year-old, and the 14-year-old has an opinion they don't like, they come back to the next legislative session and say, we're not teaching enough civic education. My kid said something I disagree with. And that does happen, literally. But this is a really important part of education and allows people to better understand how city and county government, state government, the federal government work, but also, as we've discussed, concepts like community, concepts like what it means to be a citizen, and also even to process the news, whether it's international or local news, as they grow into adults. So really important stuff. You heard from Amy Cox. She teaches fifth grade civic education, among other things, in the Wilson Elementary School. And now we'll just kind of bump up a few grade levels to the middle school level. Mount Logan Middle School teacher Ryan Meuller here in the studio as well. And Ryan, you would teach U.S. history in general. And is there a specific, separate from U.S. history, civics ed class that, or is it mixed in with the overall history teaching? Okay.
Yeah, so I teach 8th grade U.S. history, and our standards for 8th grade, it's focused on U.S. history, but we do have there's a whole standard on teaching the Constitution. So that's a lot of where we get into like a lot of the civic education, where we will learn about all of the history sort of leading up to the Constitution, all the debates that go into how it got passed and everything, the ratification debates, and we have a whole unit where we go in and we talk about all the different parts of the Constitution as well. So that's a big part of our class that we go over throughout the year.
That would be challenging at that age as well, because as adults, we know the U.S. Constitution is very simple. It's simply written. It's intended, feature, not a bug. It's a very simply written document, but applied, not at all simple, right? Is it difficult to take, contemporary examples and teach the Constitution, or is it easier to go back and spend more time talking to young people about the founding years or key events throughout history?
I feel like it's all connected, right? Because like when we go through and we talk about the history of the Constitution, I mean, all that stuff's still alive today, right? And we think about how our government functions today. I mean, Amy talked about, in 5th grade, they talk about the branches of the government. We definitely build on that, but we also talk about, the concept of federalism in class as well, and the division between state and national power as well, and how that shakes out as well. So we kind of build a lot on those, on kind of what they teach and learn in 5th grade, and we kind of expand that out further into 8th grade.
That is interesting. And do you see the same as Amy? Is there genuine curiosity?
I have a lot of kids that really, I think, enjoy. It's particularly that unit. It just seems like it's very relevant. I mean, because in the front of my classroom, I have just a T-shirt like pinned up, and it just says "vote" on it.
Oh,
and
sure.
I tell all of them, I was like, at the end of this, when you're done here in my classroom, at a bare minimum as a citizen, I want you to go out and I want you to participate in your government, right? That is your fundamental right and responsibility as a citizen. And I think that unit on the Constitution really helps to kind of hammer that home, because without them participating as future citizens in that, the Constitution is just a piece of paper,
Sure.
So we all have to participate in that. And I try and really drill that home to them. This government is yours, and you guys are the future citizens. And a few years after they're out of my class and they're going to be into Jason's class, and beyond that, they're going to be voters and adults. And I try and get them to try and think about that, right? I try and get them to think about themselves as future citizens and adults, that this is their country moving forward.
Sure. Which I love that, because as adults, it's easy to forget that at times. And we see it in the municipal turnout. We will see it, unfortunately, probably in the municipal turnout this year. Is this, at your age level, and Amy as well, if you want to weigh in these younger age groups, is there anxiety? I mean, I know we see it here on the show all the time from our callers, from people who have just, followed politics the way I always say normal people follow sports, including myself in that group of non-normal people. But there is anxiety. There's worry that maybe the system isn't as stable as we all like to think it is, or that sometimes the headlines are just like, oh, well, what? Is that trickling down to these younger age groups as well?
I would say with our age group, it's not. I mean, they may hear about the current events and have emotion with that, but as far as learning about the government, it is excitement.
That's
is, nice. How can I learn about this, be a part of this, and I can see the vision of what it's supposed to look like. And so they're very excited about it. They enjoy learning about it, and for all they know, everything's running pretty smoothly.
Sure. And I hope they get to keep that innocence for a long time. What about at your age group?
I think they definitely start to become more aware, right, of what's going on by the time they're in 8th grade. But I still do think we can get this sort of idealism, right, of like how things should work, right, and like obviously it's not always perfect, but I really do try and teach like this is how our system works, and as citizens, it's going to be up to you guys to make this thing work for our country moving forward. So
sure. That's this is interesting because I think a lot of adults, myself included at times, but probably parents as well, we forget that experiencing civics through things that generally trigger opinions or make us want to have opinions, and then social media saying yes, please, everyone have an opinion because that's fun. It becomes forgotten. I think that teaching civic education is right there with teaching algebra or teaching the biology of cell division. There's a way it works. This is how it works. If you want to have an opinion about this, great, go on and have that. But in this class, we are talking about the functional systems in play here, right? Am I kind of describing it well, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
okay. I would
for
say
sure.
That's how it's introduced, for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is fascinating, honestly. Again, you've just heard from Ryan Meuller. He teaches U.S. history and civic education looped in with that, teaching at Mount Logan Middle School. Before that, Amy Cox, who teaches 5th grade at Wilson Elementary, where, this will be a surprise to probably many out there listening, that's a level where you start talking about things that would fall into the civic education umbrella. And on the other side of this news break, we'll bump up to the high school level. And talk with Jason Soffe. He's joined us here in the studio before as part of one of these spotlights. We talked a little bit about using social media in the classroom and getting creative a little bit with teaching kids about history through fake historical figure Facebook pages and things like that. But on the other side, we'll talk specifically about civic education at the high school level. So I hope you'll stick around. Our spotlight on Logan Schools continues after this look at the news with KVNU's Will Feel Right.
Well, thank you, Jason. Utah's ban on transgender athletes competing in high school sports that do not align with their gender identity is now fully in effect after plaintiffs challenging the law agreed to dismiss their lawsuit on Monday. Now, the ban, which was passed in 2022, had been on hold for years while the Utah High School Activities Association used a commission to determine eligibility on a case-by-case basis. Now, that commission will now be dissolved and eligibility will be based on sex assigned at birth. Now, Utah House Speaker Mike Schultz celebrated the dismissal of the case, calling the resolution a major win for fairness, safety, and the preservation of women's sports in Utah. Now, the move comes as the U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear similar transgender athlete ban cases from Idaho and West Virginia. Now, it's a decision expected to determine the legality of such bans nationwide next summer. And the Smithfield Historical Society will be hosting retired religious educator Kenny Mays coming up on Saturday night, October 11th, for a presentation on Smithfield's early settlers from Britain. Now, Mays will be speaking at the Smithfield Senior Citizens Center at 7 o'clock. His remarks will focus on the LDS British missions from 1830 to 1840. Now, Mays, who's a former seminary and institute teacher, has traveled extensively to historical sites and has also produced thousands of historical images. Now, an exhibit of his photographic collection from Britain will be available an hour before the presentation. Of course, 4 prominent missionaries from that era were Wilford Woodruff, Heber C. Kimball, Willard Richards, and also Brigham Young. Now, the event is open to the public, and there is no cost. Again, that'll be 7 o'clock Saturday night at the Smithfield Senior Citizens Center. And airports in rural Utah could face service disruptions as the government shutdown is now threatening to halt funding for a program called the Essential Air Service Program. Now, the EAS program subsidizes airlines to maintain flights to smaller airports that would otherwise be unprofitable, including areas like Moab, Vernal, and Cedar City. Now, Canyonlands Airport Director Steve Gleason assured officials that flights would continue in Moab regardless of the federal lapse in funds, calling them too vital to the area's economy to be grounded. However, Cedar City's regional airport director warned that if the subsidy passes, then airlines like SkyWest may be forced to scale back or cancel some of their connecting flights. And a small wildfire broke out yesterday in a remote area of Zion National Park, and that's posing a challenge for firefighters due to difficult access. The Blue Creek Fire ignited in the right fork of North Creek Trail in Washington County. Now, state fire officials estimate that the blaze is under an acre in size, but the difficulty is that firefighters have to hike about 5 miles to reach the flames. Now, the state's Diamond Fork Aerial Firefighting Team was dispatched to the area to assist with suppression efforts. Now, no structures have been threatened by the fire, and the cause of the blaze is under investigation. Well, it's been a gorgeous afternoon, and now as the sun begins to set, as we're starting to see earlier sunsets in the day, we're going to see temperatures tonight dropping into the high 30s. Tomorrow, warmer weather as we'll be around 77 for our high Thursday, but then start to see a chance of some showers beginning Thursday night. That's going to continue on and off Friday. Increasing chance of rain likely for Saturday, tapering off by Sunday. And bringing you our weather this hour is Triton Medical Supply and Transportation, a partner for all your medical needs. Visit them online at mytritonsupply.com. And I'm Will Theorite with your KVNU News headlines.
This is a special report from ABC News. I'm Dave Packer. President Trump posting on Truth Social saying Israel and Hamas have agreed to the first phase of our peace deal, which includes a release of the hostages being held for 2 years by Hamas. He says it means all of the hostages will be released very soon. ABC's Marcus Moore.
In the president's post on his social media page, he talks about the withdrawal of Israeli troops. And so they're going to have to establish how far those troops are going to withdraw, to what line, and then try to facilitate the exchange of the hostages.
And Hamas releasing a statement saying they've reached an agreement stipulating an end to the war on Gaza, Israeli forces withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, the entry of aid, and a prisoner exchange. President Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff have been in Cairo for talks where a high-level Egyptian source saying the agreement was reached this evening. This is ABC News.
It's been a crazy few months, with big rainstorms fueling the weeds in your lawn, garden, or empty lot, and the spiders coming inside to beat the heat. You need help. Let Logan Extermination take care of those pesky weeds and unwanted pests with an exterior lawn application and interior treatment for bugs. Call Logan Extermination today before your home becomes enemy territory. Logan Extermination, 752-8450.
Weed control starts at $45. Interior spider spray starts at $95.
Everyone has an estate, but do you have an estate plan? This is Jace Allen, Northern Utah's estate planning attorney. At Allen Law Office, wills and trusts are what we do. If you've been putting it off, now is the time to get it done. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect your loved ones, protect your legacy, protect your assets. Start today at cashlegal.com or just search Allen Law Office. Wills and trusts are what we do. Allen Law Office.
The Cache Valley Media Group's Holiday Gift Show is now accepting applications for the 2025 show November 14th and 15th at the Riverwoods Conference Center. Show your creative, unique, festive, and one-of-a-kind gift ideas to thousands of holiday shoppers. It's a wonderful gift show that is truly a step above. Search Logan Holiday Gift Show for details or call 752-1390 for more information. The Logan Holiday Gift Show, a premier holiday shopping destination. Space is limited, so reserve yours today.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas!
The Morris Columbus Travel Expo is coming to Layton with travel vendors from all over the globe, airlines, cruise lines, resorts, and tour companies, including Princess Cruises. Join us at this one-day show with exclusive discounts, information seminars, and hourly prize drawings. Saturday, October 18th at the Davis Conference Center in Layton. Details at utahtravelexpo.com.
Morris Columbus.
Welcome back to KVN News for the People. Really fun conversation happening this hour as part of our monthly spotlight on Logan Schools. We have here in the studio with us today a Superintendent of Logan Schools, Frank Schofield, and working from, in order that you've heard them, Amy Cox, fifth grade teacher at Wilson Elementary, Ryan Meuller, a U.S. history teacher at Mount Logan Middle School, and now on the same topic of civic education, recently expanded a bit by the Utah legislature when it comes to Utah's K-12 schools. We have here in the studio with us as well Jason Soffe, U.S. history teacher and U.S. government teacher at Logan High School. And Jason, I would have to just assume that by everything we've heard from Amy and Ryan about the fascination that the kids show and even maybe, for lack of a better word, the innocence on the topic. They haven't been jaded and tainted by the headlines and the political opinions, but Jason, they get to your age level, the age level you teach, and now they've maybe heard their parents discussing the news at nights and paid a little more attention to it. Maybe even they and their friends have sat around and talked about contemporary headlines and political topics and things like that, and then boom, they're in your class. And you have to get them to kind of put all that aside and just, again, like teaching the subject for Amy and Ryan, teach the functional side of this. How does it work, and how does history apply, of course, to because you really can't fully understand civic education or receiving a civic education unless you can contextualize it a little bit, right?
Absolutely right. I always tell them that you're in this school because of Jefferson and his belief that if we're going to have a democracy, we need educated citizens that, know how a democracy works, right? It's self-government, right? This is our manual in a way.
Sure. And as Amy and Ryan have both said, they also participate. The Constitution, there isn't a lot to defend if no one's participating in the process, either by becoming a candidate or casting a vote. I'm curious at the high school level, how do you structure the civic education within the process of a U.S. history and U.S. government education?
Well, 11th grade is when they are normally in U.S. history.
Okay.
And we do try to focus on the complicated issues within U.S. history, primary sources, and I think that gives us a foundation in 12th grade when they take their government class. Because they have this historical background, and often that is what's lacking when we get to these very heightened political events, is like, has something like this happened before, right? And if you go back into the history, you can look at, the Palmer raids in the 1920s as maybe a similar moment, or the rise of anarchism and the worries about anarchism in the late Gilded Age, or, the political violence in the decades right before the Civil War. Like, I think a lot of kids are shocked that in the 1790s, they were completely, at each other's throats over, how to interpret the Constitution.
Sure.
Right? The national bank proposed by Hamilton was, it's not what we need, said Jefferson and Madison. And, I always remind them, these were people that were there for the most part when they're writing the Constitution, and right away they disagree about it.
Sure.
And I remind them, it's okay to disagree.
It was kind of part of it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And they had partisan press, and, we had our first unconstitutional laws in the Adams administration with the Alien and Sedition Acts, and
sure.
You have newspaper editors jailed, and getting through a lot of these hard times. I think it's important for students to see, well, we've had our times before. We've had these tough questions, and we've endured.
That's for me, and as an adult, and a question for you on this front. But as an adult, oftentimes and this just might be me, but I have this reaction when so I'll read a news story from Politico or CNN or something from that day, and I'll think, and my anxiety level just up to 11, and I think, where are we? Where are we going here? And then I'll go back and remember something I've read about history, or I'll even find something to read about history, and oftentimes, I'll tell you right now, reading about the Andrew Jackson era lately has been like, okay, all right, we've been a bit of a mess before, and do you see that with the high school students? Do they, as they learn history from you, as they start to understand history, do you see the light bulbs going on and them thinking, okay, my parents aren't crazy, the headlines aren't really that bad. It's a system that can get messy.
Yeah, and that's what I want them to know, is that the system is a little bit messy. And when they get to their government class, their senior year, we bring in more of the current events. And,
interesting.
We do try to, contextualize them. We had some Federal Reserve issues earlier in the year. And when students come in and bring those stories, and I do assign them, go find a current event.
Sure.
Come present, and let's figure out where this fits. We can then go back to 1913 and the movement to get the Federal Reserve created, and why it's an important institution for regulating the money supply. So we do try to bring the history and the civics and kind of these tough issues that we're talking about, and give it a little bit of space to breathe in our classroom. And we bring in a lot of the political science vocabulary, and
makes sense.
Show them what the research is saying, and and the data, on polarization and things like that. They can see changes over time in our political behavior, and then they can kind of make a decision: is this a direction I want to go? Do I want to do something different? I think giving them the data, giving them the context, all those things, I think, are helping to create critical thinkers.
I like that phrase, critical thinking, which is, it is, critical thinking is something you have to learn. We all have it on a basic level, certain survival instincts and risk assessment, but we also know we're actually pretty bad at risk assessment in a way, naturally, right? And you see that a lot of times, I think, play out in our politicians, in our voting habits even. So I love that critical thinking becomes a part of this. Do you have, I know, it's more the college or university level where students really start exploring different historical texts, or even controversial texts throughout history that are really eye-opening. It's a controversial book for obvious reasons, but I remember it was an ethics class, actually, at USU. We explored some of the chapters of Adolf Hitler's Mein Kampf as a way to understand people rationalizing horrible atrocities. And it was really eye-opening. It reminded me that I was horrified when we were going to be talking about that book. I'm like, why are they going to expose us to this Nazi propaganda? But I remember coming away from it understanding more about the Holocaust and why it happened, and how people were able to just kind of watch it for a long time before realizing what it was. That's a part of learning this too. But of course, at the high school level, it's a bit more difficult to add supplemental recommended reading. Do you find the students go seek it out on their own?
Some of them do, for
Do they?
sure. Yeah. I had a student, this was one of my first years of teaching. He's now like a conservative commentator,
Sure.
Saurabh Amari.
Oh, okay.
And,
Yeah.
and he was a debater at Logan High. And
I didn't know that. That's
yeah,
interesting.
he was reading, Nietzsche and other kind of like dark philosophy as a high school student.
Wow, as a
And-
conservative, obviously, you find the nihilists
yeah,
first.
yeah. So like, there's always kids, but kids read less as a whole.
Sure.
And so if kids finding a book, it's probably not my doing. They're
Interesting.
probably finding something that interests them.
But they are kind of spurred by the education you're offering to
I
go
hope so.
seek it out. That's
At least I hope they have the skills to kind of like think critically about what it is and
sure
how it fits into their own worldview. And I do encourage them to develop their own worldview and why they have that worldview.
interesting.
To jump in on that.
Sure, please.
Our fifth graders have encountered several different texts this year about things like immigration and civil rights.
Oh,
and
okay.
To be able to take a look at that from what they learn from government, to look at really basically at their level treatment of people and then
okay.
apply it to their lives is really interesting to watch and to hear the discussions as they say, well, why would they do that? Why would they treat someone like that? And then to say, are there ways today in our classroom, in our community, where we are maybe, putting ourselves at different levels or treating people differently? So
Interesting.
at our levels, and I would say, we do a disservice to our students to not address the issues that come up in the text or in different readings to talk about those issues or to not talk about those issues.
That is, and that I assume is a challenge. You can't, you can't offer civics education and at the same time completely avoid, these types of contexts. But we're in such an era right now, especially teachers are in such an era right now where, a parent finds out that their child went to the library and checked out a book on socialism because they're curious about it, which is something I did as a high school student. I was very curious about these concepts we were talking about, and you could find these books at the local library, and the local librarian knew me and maybe let me the city library, not the school, maybe let me check out some books that were way above my age level, but it helped. It was fascinating, and my question for all of you, I guess, is are we still in that era? Can kids still go do this? Are we too kind of uptight about these things in your experience? Because politically, it seems like we are. It seems like we're watching too much what our kids are reading, and being a little more worried about that than we should be necessarily. The idea that is your child being exposed to different ideas is actually going to be a good thing, especially at the high school age. Do you have that freedom still? Do you feel in the classroom that you can, let a kid taking a big interest in this kind of go their own way, encourage them a little bit to do so, maybe even to explore different ideas and thoughts?
I mean, that's a good one. I wish I had more students that wanted to explore more.
Okay.
I think our biggest issue is engagement and, putting the phone down and, picking up a book, right?
That's really important.
Yeah.
Kids have access to a lot of information that's just not in our school. I mean, they
Yeah.
can access stuff all the time. So I agree with Jason. A lot of it is just getting them engaged in what we're doing in class and really focus on those things as well. Yeah.
So focus on putting the phone down so that hopefully they decide to pick up a book one day and learn
if we
more.
can't engage them, they have devices that are built for engagement, and it's not pretty in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
And they're appealing to our fears and our anxieties, and
it's not necessarily going to lead you down a critical thinking or a actually educated road.
Yeah,
That's why it's so important this is happening in the classrooms. Again, here in the studio with us this hour, Superintendent of Logan Schools, Frank Schofield. We also have teaching at the 5th grade level at Wilson Elementary, Amy Cox. at the middle school level at Mount Logan Middle School, Ryan Meuller, and you just heard from Logan High U.S. History and U.S. Government teacher Jason Soffe, talking civic education broadly here this hour, and I hope you'll stick around. We'll wrap up the conversation right after this.
News Talk 610 AM, 102.1 FM, KVNU.
Hi, this is Sanjay Sar from Himalayan Flavor Logan. We are truly honored to be named Best of Northern Utah Silver winner for Asian food. This community means everything to us, and we are grateful for every customer who made this possible. So here's a big thank you, and thank you for your trust.
This is Jordan with Primrose Home Care and Hospice. As I visit with people on a regular basis, I see many things we can help with. Recent falls, balance training, knee, shoulder, and hip surgeries, memory loss, housekeeping, help with medications, and that's not all. We at Primrose offer the best care in any situation. A great example of this is our preventative care program. While working with your doctor and using our personal approach, we can help prevent many of these situations. For more explanation, visit primrosecare.com or call me at 787-1369. Primrose Home Care and Hospice. We're your home team.
For 100 years, the Murdoch Auto Team has served Utah's automotive needs.
The generations before us taught us to treat every customer with honesty, dignity, and respect.
And as the fourth generation, we'll continue that tradition at Murdoch GMC Chevrolet Cadillac.
During the anniversary sale, take up to $92.50 off a new 2026 Sierra 1500.
When you walk through our doors, you feel like family.
At Murdoch Chevrolet GMC Cadillac in Logan or online at murdochchevroletlogan.com.
GMC, we are professional grade.
Call 888-391-6083 or see dealer for complete details. Offer expires 11/3/25.
If you're looking for a place to host your holiday party, think Beehive Pub and Grill. Executive Chef Dustin McKay and his team will take care of your group with dozens of tasty entrees and desserts, burgers, sandwiches, salads, and don't forget their famous turtle cake. Book the Logan restaurant by calling in for off-site catering. Beehive Pub and Grill is the perfect place to host your work or family party. Open 11 to 8:30 weekdays and 11 to 9 Friday and Saturday. Beehive Pub and Grill is perfect for the holidays.
This is Detective Johnson from the Logan City Police Department. Scams in our community are on the rise and innocent victims are losing thousands of dollars. These scams are coming in the form of phony phone calls claiming to be from government organizations or legitimate businesses. They are also circulating on social media and emails. Almost all of these scams are asking for payment through gift cards that are almost impossible to track. No legitimate business or organization uses gift cards as currency. If you receive a scam of this nature, do not give the scammers any information and immediately call police. Remember, pause, stop, call a cop.
For the people, wrapping things up here with our guests here in the studio again, teachers from the Logan School District. Ryan Meuller teaches Mount Logan Middle School. Amy Cox teaches at Wilson Elementary, and Jason Soffe, you just heard from, wrapping things up here, teaches U.S. History and U.S. Government at Logan High. Talking civics education in general, and we've only got 4 minutes left here, so not much time to get into specifics on this. But I wanted to ask all of you, including you, Frank, what do you hope comes from this? All of your students, everything you get to impart on them as a teacher, what is your best case scenario? What comes out of this for each student? Whoever wants to go first.
I'd be happy to go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I would just say that for the fifth graders, finding solutions to the problems that they see around them, becoming a part of their society where they can look at something that may seem to be a problem and just thinking, how can I help? What can I do to make it better?
That is honestly a very, very lofty goal, and I hope it's one you are able to achieve because that would mean so much, I think, for every one of these kids going into adult life as voters, as citizens, residents of a state. Ryan, Jason, you want to add anything to that?
I mean, for me every day, it's a privilege to be able to get to do this. Like I love being able to work with young people, and like my biggest goal is just for them to be like knowledgeable, informed, passionate, and ready just to like move on and go be citizens. They want to learn more. They want to engage, right, as they get out there. And
Sure.
I hope as they leave my class, like they feel excited about that. They feel excited to go and engage that. They feel excited to learn more when they get to high school and then beyond, and really just go out there and realize how important that is, right, for them and all of us. So
that's actually that's a part of that we haven't focused on, the importance of this, that we do forget that as adults, right? Now, well, you three probably don't. You're teaching it, right?
Think about it all the time.
But in general, I think adults do kind of forget that a little. Jason, anything that you'd like to add on this?
That last comment, adults kind of forget some of this. I sometimes have to remind my adult friends about the Constitution and Bill of Rights and court cases. And, we do need a refresher every now and then as adults.
Yeah.
And I hope that my students remember some of those basic lessons and refresh as they get older. And I'm always encouraged by my former students that check in with me and tell me what they're doing. And, hey, I'm studying political science, or I think I'm going to run for, city council or things like that. Because more often than not, the kids are doing okay when they leave.
That's... I like that you say that, because I feel that way often when I get to interact with a younger relative or a friend's son or daughter. Sometimes I feel much more encouraged hearing them talk than I do watching the news some nights and hearing some of our elected officials talk, because I think it does often get forgotten. And I think there are a lot of reminders in the news these days that it is also kind of a fragile system. It depends a lot on, just agreements that everyone's going to play by the rules. And I think many adults right now are surprised to learn that, well, if someone decides not to, there you are. It can lead to a cynicism, is my point. That speaking with you three all here today is encouraging to hear you're out there fighting in advance, fighting that cynicism and getting people curious and excited. Thanks to you all for being here and for allowing our listeners to be a part of this as well, and for what you do in the schools. To you and every teacher out there, it's so important, especially right now. Ryan Meuller, U.S. History teacher at Mount Logan Middle School, Jason Soffe, U.S. History and U.S. Government teacher at Logan High School, and Amy Cox, 5th grade teacher at Wilson Elementary. They teach versions of social studies, history, and civics education. And as you just heard, it's a really important thing. Frank Schofield, superintendent of Logan Schools, also here in the studio with us. And Frank, again, a shout out. Thank you for making this happen. To our listeners, thank you for being here, and stick around. Dave Ramsey is next here on KVNU.